everyone, happy Sunday and welcome to my channel. This morning we are making my mom's birthday cake. We are using Cake Confidence by Mandy. She is baking with Blondie on Instagram and I bought her book. So I'm going to use it for a white cake. And I'm just going to start by greasing up my baking pans. Now I just used some Crisco shortening and I know it seems odd to stuff the paper towel just straight in there, but that shortening is specifically for doing this. Sometimes I will make the cake goop, which is just equal parts flour, shortening, and vegetable oil. And if you mix it all together, it works wonders. It does the same thing and it's quicker, but I didn't have any ready-made. And so anyway, so I'm just showing you that you just kind of grease the entire thing with the shortening. Next, I just grab some all-purpose flour and open it in the most awkward way to pour flour ever. And I just dump some in there and that'll be enough for all three. That actually might be too much for all three. But I just give it a quick shake. It saves me from having to use parchment paper, cut out my own rounds and all that sort of thing. So yeah, you just spin it around and coat everything nicely and then just give it a good bang to get any extras out. And yeah, move on to the next one and so on and so forth until you're on your last. And then once that's done, we will just set them to the side and we move on to our batter. So I've pre-measured everything just to make it easier, but I have 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk and then I run and grab a spatula. Thought I was so prepared. Anyway, so yeah, 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk and then 2/3 of a cup of sour cream. I opted for plain Greek yogurt because to me it's basically the same thing. And we used the yogurt rather than the sour cream in our house. So that's what we had on hand. So I just got all that in there. Then I did 1/3 of a cup of vegetable oil, which you will see me try very hard not to spill on its way to the bowl. And then I have some egg whites. I have 4 egg whites in that white bowl there, and I'm just gonna dunk those in. And I forgot to put the vanilla in right away, which you will see me just kind of sneak in there in a little bit. Okay, so I'm just attaching the whisk attachment to make sure that everything is incorporated properly and there's no odd chunks of yogurt. But I did forget the vanilla, so that's where I just popped her in. And yeah, then I give that a good mix in. And here you're going to see me grab this box of cake mix, which seems so odd, but that's what the recipe calls for. And apparently Mandy uses box mixes quite a bit and just like adds some things to them to spice it up and make them better. And honestly, the way that this cake ended up turning out, like, I'm not even upset about it. It worked out pretty good. So now I'm just going to take my sifter here so I can sift the cake mix. So I'm doing this to avoid any huge chunks just not incorporating properly into the batter because I feel like there would be nothing worse than taking a bite of cake and actually taking a huge bite of like flour and, you know, anyways, I digress. So you're going to see me here sift through this and I just kind of shake it until it all goes through. I could have used like a spoon or something to help it along, but honestly, why dirty more dishes, right? So I just kind of shake it in there. But I did discover that there are these little like, I'm gonna call them like flavor balls. There's like, you'll see here when this is done, but there's something in the cake mix and it's got to be the flavor, right? Like, I don't know, it's got to be a necessary part of the cake or else I feel like it wouldn't be in there. So I didn't actually want to just like throw these out just because they didn't make it through my sifter. So I just patted down any of the big balls of the like flour or what have you to make sure that I got it all through. And then I ended up just dumping my little flavor packet into the bowl and just kind of prayed to God that they were meant to be there. I'm sure they are. If anyone has any idea, I would love to hear about it. So now I just attach my paddle attachment and The recipe book actually says to mix until just incorporated, like you don't want to go ham on it. So I didn't mix it for very long. I just got my baking pans ready and made sure it looked like it was smooth sailing, and then just turned her off. So I start by just scraping down the edges and then give it one more quick spin to make sure that I got everything. But then I just eyeball the batter and pour it into the cake pans. And then by the end, I do grab my scale just to make sure that they're basically the same. I wasn't too crazy about the exact number, but I wanted it to be generally the same size. I didn't want one massive cake and for my layers of my cake to be different sizes. I wasn't into that. So you'll see me do that, but I'll just speed through it because I think you guys get the gist. Okay, so here you see me just banging the cake pans on the counter, and I'm just trying to get any air bubbles out so that when it bakes and you cut the cake open, there isn't any huge holes in the cake. So I'm going to put them all on the same rack. The oven's at 350, and I'm going to set the timer for 25 minutes because that is what Mandy says to do in the book. And now I'm going to get my double broiler started so that I can make Swiss meringue buttercream. So you want to make sure that the water is not so high that it touches the bowl when you put the bowl into the pot. And I did make sure to use vinegar to clean out the inside of the bowl as well as the whisk, because if there's any grease or anything in the bowl, the meringue won't whip up into a meringue, or the egg whites won't become a meringue. So I'm using 1.5 cups of granulated sugar and 6 egg whites. I made sure that there were no bits of egg yolk in there because that also will affect it and it will not become a meringue. And now I'm just going to whisk, 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 whisk. This is the worst part in my opinion because it takes a little while and my arms get really sore. But you cannot stop whisking because the eggs could cook and then you would have weird half-cooked eggs and sugar. It would be really gross. So you want to make sure that you heat it so that the eggs are edible because you don't want to just whip up raw eggs and feed it to people. So I will whisk and whisk and whisk until I'm thinking it's close. And I have to make sure that I scrape down the sides of the bowl to get any pieces of granulated sugar. And then I just take its temperature. I'm looking for 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 160 degrees Celsius in order to know that my eggs are cooked. Another way that you can test this is to pull out the whisk and anything that drips off, just catch it between your fingertips and just rub it together. If you feel any granulated sugar, then you are not there yet. If it is smooth, you are likely done, but I'm a bit of a nervous Nelly, so I like to check with the temperature gauge. So yeah, I'm just gonna whisk and whisk and whisk, and you can see that it actually kind of changes color a little bit as it heats up. So we'll just keep this going here. And I did pull out my butter so that it would be soft for when I want to add it. I want it to be room temperature, not melted though. So it is sitting out and I have 3/4. Oh, see, there's me doing my little tester. Sorry, I've lost track. So anyways, I have 1.5 cups of butter waiting there for me. That's what I meant to say. I was going to say cooling, but becoming room temperature. And you're going to see that my water is starting to steam because I became a little impatient and turned the temperature up a little because my wrists were hurting. So the water's really bubbling under there. And there we go. So now I'm just going to move it straight over to my mix master, and I don't want to stop mixing it. I don't know why, I just really feel that it needs to continually mix. So now that it's going, we'll just let it do its thing. You're going to see it turn into a meringue here, which is pretty cool in my opinion, to go from a liquid to a meringue. And then once it's a meringue, I actually just let it continue mixing. I know people say not to overmix, but I've never had a problem. And I just continue to mix so that it cools down faster. And while that is mixing, I am going to pull out the cakes because they are done. Yes, honestly, making that meringue took me about 25 minutes. So now those are done, and I've just pulled them out of the oven, and I'm going to leave them to cool for 5 minutes on the stove before I flip them onto their cooling racks. So just back over here to check on our meringue, and you can tell it's starting to take on a thicker texture. I'm just touching the bowl to see how the bowl is doing, because if the bowl is still really hot, then I want to keep mixing. So I've sped this process up so that you don't have to sit through this whole ordeal, but it doesn't really take too long. I just don't want to waste your time here, guys. So I've moved my butter over. I'm getting ready. I'm just kind of waiting for the meringue to finish up here. And I do have to apologize if I seem really breathy. I am pregnant, and I am telling you, the more I talk, the more I can't breathe. So I apologize if I'm very breathy in this video. But anyways, so now our meringue is looking good. I like to just do that. It gives it kind of a cool spin. Anyways, I'm rambling. So yeah, so there is our meringue, and I swear that that is just an air pocket. That is not like a crumb in the meringue. Do not worry. So now I'm just going to use my spatula and scrape any leftover meringue off of the whisk attachment and get it into the bowl. And then I am going to attach my paddle attachment to my stand mixer and get my little offset spatula so I can start putting the butter in. Okay, so it's been a solid 5 or more minutes, so I'm just going to take my cakes out of the pans and put them on the cooling racks, and the pans themselves are still pretty warm and I don't want to burn myself, so you can see me fumbling there, but that's all right. So look at how easy these cakes come out of the pans, and I'm telling you, just a little bit of flour and shortening and boom, perfect. Okay, back to the meringue. So I'm just going to take little chunks of the butter at a time, and I want my mix master going to medium to high speed, and I'm going to give the butter a few moments to actually get incorporated before I start adding more, because I don't want massive chunks of butter in there. And I'm going to speed this up because this is also a little time consuming. So you can see I just kind of hopped ahead there, and you can see that the texture is changing a little bit of the meringue. It's more of a liquid now, a thick liquid, but still a liquid. And the color is also changing, and that's because of the color of the butter. If I wanted a perfectly white meringue, or buttercream, sorry, once this part is over and I add the vanilla, I would also add some white food coloring, but I'm not really concerned about it today. I'm okay with this color. So I just wanted to show you it kind of looks like a cake batter at this point, and we'll just keep mixing and adding more butter. So I have learned, when I first started this, I was told that you need to use 2 cups of butter. And as I have learned, I only pull out a cup and a half now, and sometimes I only use a cup and a quarter. So it really depends, and you'll have to just watch as you're mixing, look at the texture of the meringue or buttercream. And honestly, sometimes the texture can look a little scary, like it's almost about to become like curdled milk. Do not fear, just continue to mix and it will whip up into the proper texture. Do not panic, because it always looks like that. It looks kind of gross, but honestly, it always works out in the end. So you can see it starting to get thicker here and really become a buttercream. Here we go. So we're basically at the end. I just want to show you what the texture is. It looks wonderful. I'm pretty happy with this. So I'm just going to get my vanilla and add some vanilla to it. I don't measure. I just kind of wing it, do what I think is best. And I don't know who measures vanilla really. So I just kind of give it a go. Vanilla also changes the color of it. You can get clear artificial vanilla. I'm not sure if you can get clear real vanilla. I doubt it, but don't quote me on that because I'm really not sure. So I'll just give that another little whip to make sure that that's all incorporated. And then, yeah, you guys, that is how I make my Swiss meringue buttercream. And so I made this video in 2 parts because I'm already getting close to 17 minutes by the end of this video, and I don't want you guys to just be bored and over it. If you want to see how I actually decorate the cake, then please continue to follow along and just go to the next video. It'll be part 2. And if you enjoyed this, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe and like this video. Sorry. Also, I don't know if you saw there me just showing you the texture of the meringue before and the texture of it after. And you can see that I didn't use all of my butter. So anyways, thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a great day.